All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to demystify a really critical piece of modern logistics, SAP's Transportation Management, or TM, especially how it works inside S/4HANA. We're going to cover what it is, why it's changing in a big way, and, most importantly, what it means for your business.
So, let me ask you a question. When you look across your entire supply chain, from end to end, what's that one area that's just notoriously complex and, expensive to manage?
Yep, for most companies, it's transportation. Moving your goods from point A to point B is the absolute backbone of the global supply chain. There's no doubt about that. But it's also a huge and often really unpredictable cost center.
And that's exactly where transportation management software, or TM, comes into play. You can think of it as the system designed to bring some much-needed control, efficiency, and visibility to all that complexity and all those costs. It's the brain of the operation.
Okay, so let's dive into the big story here, because there's a major shift happening in the SAP world. And it's something every single logistics and IT leader really needs to get their head around, because this isn't just another upgrade, it's a fundamental change in how things work.
So, for the longest time, companies on the old SAP ERP system used a module called LE-TRA for their logistics. And hey, it worked, but it was basically its own separate thing. With the move to S/4HANA, SAP has completely changed the game by embedding its much more powerful transportation management solution right into the digital core. It's no longer a separate piece, it's native and tightly woven into everything else.
And here's the kicker. This isn't optional. SAP has put a date on the calendar. By 2030, the old LE-TRA component is officially being retired. That makes the switch to this new embedded TM absolutely mandatory for anyone who wants to stay current on the S/4HANA platform.
Okay, so you have to make the switch. But here's where it gets really interesting, because this mandatory change comes with a big decision for every single company, and it all revolves around licensing and the functionality you actually need.
You see, SAP split the new embedded TM into two different flavors. First, you've got Basic TM. This comes included with your standard S/4HANA license, and it's really designed to cover the kinds of things you were already doing in the old LETR system. But then you have Advanced TM, which unlocks the full powerhouse of features, but it requires a separate additional license. And this is where a lot of companies get a bit stuck. Because as consultants who are in the trenches with this stuff every day will tell you, drawing that line, figuring out what's included in basic and what might accidentally push you into needing an advanced license, well, it's not always so clear-cut.
Now, it's not all confusing. There's actually some really great news here. SAP has been packing more and more power into that basic license. The biggest win for users, by far, is that the central planning tool, the transportation cockpit, is now included right out of the box, along with some way better freight costing tools.
But, and this is a big but, here's the catch. SAP's logic is basically this. If you use a feature that goes beyond what the old LETR system could ever do, you've crossed the line into advanced territory. For instance, just modeling a specific truck in the system as a resource, something the old system couldn't do, can be enough to trigger the need for that paid advanced license. So you got to be careful.
Okay, so enough about licensing for a minute. Let's take a step back and look at what this actually looks like in action. We'll follow a typical shipment's journey inside the new system, which should help make it all click.
The whole process flows really logically. It all kicks off with demand, right? Usually from a sales order. That automatically creates a transportation requirement. From there, it moves to a planner who consolidates these requirements onto trucks. Once that plan is set, the system helps coordinate the actual execution, telling the warehouse what to do, telling the carrier where to go. And finally, after the delivery's done, it handles all the money side of things.
So that very first step, demand, that creates something in the system called a freight unit. This is the absolute fundamental building block in TMS. You can just think of it as a little digital package representing a shipment that's just sitting there waiting to be assigned to a truck.
And those freight units all show up in the transportation cockpit. This is really mission control for the planners. It's their one-stop shop, a visual workspace where they can see all the demand, all the available trucks, and they can start playing Tetris, strategically combining everything into the most efficient truckloads possible. And that becomes a freight order.
So, why does all of this matter? I mean, why go through this mandatory and sometimes confusing change? Well, the answer comes down to one incredibly powerful word: integration. Because TM is now baked right into the S/4HANA core. It's not some lonely island anymore. It's the great connector.
It talks directly to sales when an order comes in, it seamlessly coordinates with your warehouse management system for picking and loading, and it links right into procurement and finance to handle the bills. It's like the central nervous system for your entire logistics operation.
And here is a fantastic example of that integration in action. It's a process called internal settlement. Let's say one part of your big company provides trucking for another part. Well, TM can automate that entire complex intercompany billing and accounting process, creating all the right documents for both sides automatically. That's something that used to be a massive manual headache.
And here's the real game changer. All of this deep integration leads to something huge: visibility. For maybe the first time, you can take the actual freight costs and post them all the way back to a specific sales order or even a specific material. This gives you the true landed cost of getting that product to your customer and a much more accurate picture of your real profitability.
And that really brings us to the final thought here. When you have tools like this embedded in your system, transportation stops being just a simple, reactive cost center that moves boxes around. It becomes a strategic part of your business that can actively optimize cost, boost your service levels, and drive real, measurable value. So the question you have to ask is, which one is yours?